Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Adam Hyde from Coko. Um, just want to give you a little bit of an introduction into Coko, and I'll try and keep it relatively short. I'm hoping that we can generate some conversation. Broadly speaking, I'll be talking about building modern publishing systems and the Coko approach to this, which is not just about technology, but about community as well. So I'll give you a little bit of background on who I am and then talk a little bit about Coko as an organization and then the Coko community and what we do. So starting off with me, my name is Adam Hyde. I'm a New Zealander. I've been in the publishing game for about 12 years or so, so relatively newcomer, but not so new. I've done a number of things in the past before Coko, which started about 4 years ago. One of the things is just a way of background is a thing called book sprints, which is a process that I came up with for facilitating the production of books in 5 days. This is currently a company which works full-time doing this. It's a fantastic group of people. It's a kind of like a radically improved process for production of books. And it was through this journey really of book sprints that I learned a lot of things about technology development, because we had to develop technology platforms, book production platforms that would support these kind of radically efficient processes. In book sprints, we work with just about everybody. It's just a photo recently where we were working with United Nations Development Project and East African nations to discuss the possibility of a book sprint for producing a policy guidebook for East African nations around reusable energy policy. And just to show that the process of producing knowledge like this is not just about producing books, but it's been used by organizations, large-scale organizations, for production of consensus around very specific issues. Which I find very fascinating. It's a privilege to work on this project, and this is just a photograph of the book sprints team. Very small team, more like a family. I think fantastic bunch of people, and I still have involvement on the board of directors. I am the board of director, so to speak. Other things that I've done is that I'm a Shuttleworth fellow. Mark Shuttleworth from South Africa started a foundation where he or the organization selects a small group of people to work on open projects every year. And I've just completed the 3 years, maximum of 3 years you can have. But as they say, once a Shuttleworth Fellow, always a Shuttleworth Fellow, so I have a close association with that organization. It's with that money that I seeded the beginnings of Coko in 2015. There's book sprints. Aperta, I was the designer behind the PLOS system Aperta, which unfortunately didn't make it to market, but it was a fascinating project. Also book type, book production system, PLOS manuals. I developed a community to develop manuals, free manuals about free software. So that's where I learned a lot about collaboration as well, and how community and collaboration, technical systems all connect together. And then Page.js, which is a very modern system for turning web pages into books, into PDFs at a press of a button. It's a little bit about me. A little bit about Coko. Coko is both an organization and a community, so I'll speak a little bit about the organization. Coko is, we're about 9 people. We're very small. We're a group of experts that gather together and work together to build publishing platforms, open source publishing platforms. We're a very small team, very intimate team, kind of very similar to book sprints in a way. I like to grow cultures of organizations and very communicative, small organizations that are very effective, sort of punch above their weight. So yeah, very proud of this team. We have a good time and we do fascinating things. On that team is a small group of developers and then also a small management team. Try and keep it very lightweight and efficient. And then we're also a community. So this is a photograph of like the 3 or the 4 organizations that really sort of brought about a broader collaboration around Coko. Pictured here, you see people from EIFL journal, European Bioinformatics Institute, and Hindawi. So these are all publishers that work together, and we were the first group of people really to come together around the Coko approach, the technology and the community, and really start working together with a vision of changing the publishing sector, of producing not one publishing platform, but many, many publishing platforms. And the idea there being that publishers are really trapped within a very limited number of choices, but publishing is just not, you know, one of the handful of models. There's so many different ways that you can go about publishing, different types of things you publish and the way you go about it, the workflows. So we need to diversify the number of technologies that would support that, new ways of working, current and new ways of working, to make publishing faster and better, and open the door for innovation, publishing new types of things going forward, new processes, open peer review processes, etc. So we collaborate around building publishing platforms and sharing the bits and pieces of what we build amongst ourselves, so that others that come can build their own publishing platforms at an increased speed and reduced cost. So I'll get a little bit to that in a moment. So in the community, we gather very frequently, these organizations, to meet with each other and talk about what we're doing, work out how to better collaborate with each other, not talk just about technology, but talk about workflow and how we do what we do as publishers, how to improve things, how to work our way out of legacy thinking, what the future might look like, what parts of the systems, you know, we still would like to see evolve. So these are very interesting meetings. We have them very regularly. We have them actually once every 4 months, and we gather together in Cambridge in the UK and talk about what we're doing. These are just some photos of the community in action in various forms. So what we also do is what you can see here. European Bioinformatics Institute, Coko, facilitates not just the broader community in these meetings, but also we help with individual organizations to better understand their workflows and how to improve them, and then think about the technologies that they may need in order to support that. So it's not enough to talk about publishing technologies, but you have to really think what they're trying to help, and what they're trying to help is workflow, what a publisher does. How can we make that nicer for everybody involved? So faster, more efficient, but also a better experience for everybody, including those people that are submitting content, researchers and authors, etc. So here's a picture of a small group from European Bioinformatics Institute that I facilitated for a day to help think about the workflow, design a better system. And then this organization got their developers together, some funding together, and their developers, and they built that system in less than a year, and it's currently in production for all of the materials running through to Europe PMC. It's a similar event that we conducted with another publisher. This is Wormbase, which is starting at micropublications.org organization for the publication of micropublications. And we facilitated their community to do a similar thing, to think about workflow and then think about technology. And it's always in that order: think about workflow. What is it that we have to do as publishers? And then think about technology rather than the other way around. This is another picture of working with the Wormbase folks, or the micro genome people. It's also showing some of these photos to show that, you know, it's also about having fun with each other. We're not a very formal organization. You know, we enjoy working with people, and we often say that software is a conversation. It's not a technical endeavor, but it's an endeavor that's brought about through collaboration with people, and software is an outcome. This is working with the Organization for Human Brain Mapping, very similar day that we had, facilitated this group of researchers to come together to think about how they would build a publishing system and what it might look like to support their workflow for micropublications around neuroscience. So Wormbase, once again, this is a larger Coko meeting that we had, one of the early ones in London. Dan Morgan there from PLOS talking about workflow, I believe, at the time. So, you know, it's not just about technology, it's about thinking about publishing in general. This is from the Coko meeting last week, where it was held in Cambridge. And, you know, we also try and have some fun with each other. This is going down one of the rivers, and I think there was also a karaoke night as well, which fortunately I didn't attend, but it looked like fun. So we're really about people, conversation, community, working with people, working with connecting publishers and scholarly communication organizations with each other to learn from each other, to help collaborate, to make better workflows and better technologies to support those workflows. And we also work with individual organizations as well, and publishers and scholarly communication organizations to help them specifically identify what they need to improve and how they could go about it. So the Coko community is very broad. This is just a short list of the organizations that are involved in it. Hindawi, EIFL, European Bioinformatics Institute, Wormbase, Open Book Publishers based in Oxford, Punctum Books based in Santa Cruz, ATLA Digital Science, which you probably heard of, Organization for Human Brain Mapping, California Digital Library, University of California Press, and many more. So all of these organizations we collaborate with and we facilitate to work with each other. And together, some of these organizations, but not all, are involved in the building of publishing platforms and collaboration around that. And that community of developers specifically is increasing quite dramatically. I think we probably have 30 or more programmers in total working full-time on these systems. Hindawi's just ramped up to about 20, and I think they're going even higher in the next year or so. So it's a very significant effort around this collaboration, and it's all open source. So it is really producing a whole lot of community good products that are free to use. The platforms that are built are free to use by anyone, but also if you wish to build your own platform, then you can use parts, these reusable code, to do that in a cheaper and faster method. So just to revert from the people to the actual building of the platforms. So what we did, and this is our proposition at the very beginning when we started in 2015, and back then it sounded a little bit like science fiction, but you know, we were brave, and we put together a framework, a technical framework, which we call Pubsweet. And what Pubsweet does, it's shared by all of these organizations that build these various platforms. And Pubsweet is at the center of all of these. And on top of that, individual workflows are built, right? So whether it's journal platforms or book production platforms or whatever. So what this means is that if we have this common central piece, Pubsweet, and it's a common approach to building publishing workflows, then we can share code. So as I said, you can take all of these systems are open source. You could take the entire system and use it for free. You could take Hindawi's system, use that for free, or Editoria, the book production system, whatever you like. But if you decide that that doesn't quite meet your needs and you have to build your own, then you can grab the smaller pieces of the of this greater code base and assemble your own platform to meet your own workflow. And of course, you know, it's not magic. It's not like clicking together a bunch of Lego blocks. It requires developers to do that. You know, it's hard work. You have to think about it. You have to have good developers on board. But we also help with onboarding organizations, training the developers. And Coko also itself also has a development team where we develop some of these platforms as well. So essentially, Pubsweet provides a lot of stuff that enables developers to build publishing systems. And then those publishing systems are free to use by anybody. It's all open source. One of the prerequisites of being involved in this community is everything that you produce is open source. So it's owned by the community. It is community-owned infrastructure. It's rapidly growing, and on top of Pubsweet, you can build the the workflows you want. And this is the whole point, right? Is that publishers shouldn't be forced to work a certain way. You should choose how you want to work. And there's so many different ways that you can work. It is absurd to think that one or two platforms can cater for that. So what we're trying to do is create the possibility for many, many, many platforms. And then you can come along. If you don't have developers, you can choose one of them, the best fit, rather than just having one option. Or if you have developers, or you can collaborate with organizations that do have developers, then you can really make a workflow that suits your needs exactly, not approximately, but exactly. So the use cases of the types of publishing platforms that have been built on top of Pubsweet include journals, like Hindawi and eLife, micro-publication systems, open Organization for Human Brain Mapping, and Wormbase. Content aggregation is the European Bioinformatics Institute, books and book sprints catered for in different forms by Editoria, the book production system, and there's award systems, and there's plans for OER, production of OER materials, etc. And really you can just, this just goes to show the diversity of use cases. Pubsweet isn't trying to get you to work one way. You can really design your own workflow, exactly the one you want for the kinds of materials that you wish to produce, and then you can build that on top of Pubsweet. And the nice thing is that when you do that, you're building with the community, so you're learning a lot from the community, and the community's learning a lot from you. So currently there's about 9 publishing platforms being built, and 4 are currently actually in production, including Hindawi system, eLife system, a European Bioinformatics system, which fuels Europe PMC, and Editoria, which is a book production system used by many university publishers, monograph publishers. So just to give you an idea, the whole point is that you have Pubsweet, and it sort of allows you to assemble these different workflows that might look very differently according to what it is that you're trying to do. So these are just some screenshots. So one of the things that we are very forceful on is that publishing workflows should look beautiful. They should not just do what you need them to do, but they should be an elegant user experience. And so a lot of the code that's developed, there's a lot of time put into making them follow best practices of accessibility, but also, you know, that they look good, but they can also be styled well to meet your organization's look and feel. And they also have had a lot of thought to the user experience put in them as well. So you can take these small parts of a system and build up a greater system, and all this thinking has been done for you per component. So yeah, and many publishing systems look like they're built in the early 90s, many of them were, and you know, things have changed, and there are more elegant approaches. And so we are very much taking a stand on beautiful experiences for all of those involved in the workflow, and really pushing the community forward to think about this. And this is why the community meetings, for example, are not just developer meetings, but they're also meetings for designers and people thinking about workflows as well. So it's a broader collaboration, because all of these things are important. Building publishing technology is not just something that developers do. Which also means, by the way, that publishers, publishing staff are involved in the design of these systems as well. So these are just a few screenshots. This is a web-based word processor that we built, which is used in the Editoria system. This is a very early screenshot, more sophisticated than this now, but you know, everything's very spacious and clean. This is another version of a dashboard, similar to the one that I just showed you before. And you know, this allows you to see a little bit more information according to your dashboard, your manuscripts, about the status of various articles that have been submitted. This is a screenshot from the book production system Editoria, where you see the structure of a book, and you can see the parts and the chapters, and you can move things around. And just a little bit more detail looking at the Editoria book production system, and how you, what they call components, which is like a chapter, but not necessarily a chapter, like an introduction as a component, but not necessarily a chapter. So when you add one of these to your book, you can choose what kind of component you have through a drop down. So all of these things are all being thought out with great amount of forethought to make them look good and make the experience good. And all of this code is reusable, so you can take one of these things and implement it in another system. So that's what Coko does. Coko builds community to improve workflow, and we build technology to meet those needs. We facilitate that across multiple organizations to get them to work together. So our hope, and that what we are actually doing, is generating good faith communities that really like to work with each other. It's a hard thing. I mean, the hardest thing about this is not the technology. It's actually getting people to work together. But one of the reasons why I pointed out the book sprints at the beginning of this is because we have a lot of experience. I specifically have a lot of experience in facilitating groups of people to work together towards a shared common good. And it's hard work, and it's a very specific skill. And we bring that to these communities to get publishers to work together, because it's a difficult problem. The technology is a whole lot easier. But getting people to agree on what they want, that's tricky. So that's what we do, and it's been working extremely well. So as I said before, the first group of organizations, Handawa, eLife, and EBI, we got together just under a year and a half ago. All three of those organizations have been building code and sharing code and building on top of Pubsweet, and they all put systems in production in under a year, which is a result of the collaboration, and it's also unheard of in the sector. So we're rapidly lowering the time to develop publishing systems. And then we work with individual publishers, and we help them understand their workflow and how they could improve it, and then think about what technology they could use to support that. And sometimes, by the way, if no changes are needed, it's just a matter of changing how you do things with the same technology, then we're not afraid to help them understand that as well. It's not, technology is not a magic wand by itself. You can change how you do things just by, talking about what the process is. And maybe if this person did this thing and this person did that thing, that might save a whole lot of time. So we help organizations understand that as well. If they need technology, then we help them design the technology. And then we either build it with them or for them, depending on what they want. And then another thing that we do is that we really wish to radically change the sector and to promote the value of open, not just of open content, but of open source software, open collaboration. And so we've just recently launched Open Publishing Awards. And this is open until, the nomination's open until September the 20th. And this, there'll be a small party at Force 11 in Edinburgh on October the 15th, where we'll announce some of the selected projects and celebrate them. But this is really not about winners, so to speak. It's about holding up certain projects as exemplars in the way that they work in terms of open, right? And showing that open is not just non-proprietary or not proprietary, but open is a powerful thing in itself, and that it has strategic value in the things that we're all trying to achieve, and it can really work for you if you're willing to work with other people. And so the Open Publishing Awards is really about highlighting how open works by using select projects as prime examples of fantastic things that have been happening because organizations are working in an open way, not just licensing, but about open in a broader sense. Yeah, so that's it. Here's some details if you wish to contact me. I know we should, I hope, have some discussion. My name's Adam. You can email me at adam@Coko Foundation. Also happy to jump on a call at any time. You can find us at coko.foundation. Open Publishing Awards are open now. And you can on Twitter at Coko Foundation. And really happy to talk to anybody, regardless of where you're coming from about these issues. You don't have to have developers. You can just be thinking about publishing. Very happy to hop on any calls and just talk things through and see if we can help you in any way.
Thanks a lot, Adam. We already have one question from Owen from ECA Connect Research and Education Network in Nigeria. And he's asking what programming languages would developers be required to use to leverage Pubsweet?
We made the decision right at the beginning that everything should be written in JavaScript. JavaScript was at that time, 4 years ago, becoming very popular, but it still hadn't really established itself as an application development language. But we thought we'd put our money on it because it's easier to find JavaScript programmers around the world than almost any other programmer. So this makes it a little bit more accessible for organizations that wish to build on top of Pubsweet. So JavaScript is the language, and you only need to know JavaScript front and back, and that's it.
Thanks. Next question is from Vyacheslav Bryczkowski from Belarus National Library. What is the difference between Pubsweet and OJS? Does it make sense to migrate from OJS to Pubsweet?
So we have a great amount of respect, obviously, for PKP. They were the first people on the scene doing open journal system, and there's a bunch of researchers solving a problem, and they deserve to be celebrated. We take a different approach to what they do. They have a monolithic system that works in a certain way. And if you like that, that's fantastic, and you should use it. And if you don't like it, then that's where we become interesting, so that you could work with us in developing or choosing an existing system or developing a system on top of Pubsweet that exactly meets your needs. And if that were the case, then you would build that system or choose the one that's already in operation, like Hindawi system or whatever, and then migrate from, if you're already on OJS, you migrate from one for the other. So we don't advocate, we don't put ourselves as being oppositional to OJS. We think they're an amazing organization. But if it doesn't quite fit your needs, then you may wish to work with us, and then we can help you work out how to do that.
And there is a follow-up question from Vyacheslav. Sorry, Jadranka, will come back to you in a minute. So Vyacheslav is asking what expertise we need to implement a small mini publishing platform, let's say for 10 journals. How much time does it take?
Is that to build a system, you mean? Is that the question?
Or maybe reuse already existing one?
Yeah, I mean, if you could take the Hindawi system, or there's some micropublication systems out there, micropublications.org, which is the Wing-based system. You could already use those, and if it meets your needs, then away you go. If it doesn't meet your needs and you're having to build a system, then we can help you look at those systems, see if they could be adapted, or you could build something from scratch. So how long that takes to build something, I mean, migrating to a new system is just a question of, installing a system, finding someone to look after it for you, and then using it, right? So it's a lot less required than building a system. If you want to build a system, then from what I can tell, it's a how long is this length of string question, but it could take anything from 1 to 2 years to build it, and which is rapid in this environment. I mean, it's kind of almost unheard of to build a publishing system in that amount of time. And that's because we use a lot of reusable code and we collaborate with each other. Yeah, so if you were to go down that path, then I'd factor in at least a year, a couple of programmers, and then we can help with the onboarding and things like this.
Thanks. And Dr. Mahdi has a follow-up question, and then we'll take your question, Jadranka. So he was clarifying, what about the cost of getting your publishing system, because we have OJS. So just to stress that everything that Coko does is free and open source. Yep. So you don't need to pay for actual use of software.
Yep.
And now to Jadranka's question, and Jadranka has many hats. So some of her roles are coordinating national open access journals and open repositories portals in Croatia. And she's asking, is open source peer review system supports open peer review?
Well, it depends on, so the thing about what we do is that there are many organizations that come together and they build what they need, right? So some of those support, well, the Hindawi system, obviously, and the ELO system support peer review. whether those peer review approaches suit your model is a question that's very difficult to answer. You have to sit down and look at those systems and map it onto your needs. The reason why I'm being a little bit sort of circumspect, or a little bit, I'm not being evasive about this, but it's a difficult question to answer, is because open peer review obviously is just it could mean many different ways to approach peer review. Does it support open peer review? You can use any of the systems out there to support open peer review that have been built on Pubsweet. You could build your own. There's no limit to the kinds of approaches that you have, you can take. But that all depends on your model of peer review, what you have in mind, and matching it to either what exists that's already been built on Pubsweet or building it from scratch. So it's a difficult question to answer directly. It's not like we can say these systems support this features. It's more like, what exactly do you mean? What does it look like? What does the workflow around that look like? And then we can start talking about whether it exists or whether you have to build it. Yeah, and also I spent a lot of time in Croatia, so and love your country very much. So thank you for the question.
We also have a question from José Carvalho from Minho University, who is also involved in national open journal and repositories projects in Portugal. So he's asking, is there any content format that you propose to use on this framework, like JATS XML, that can be reused?
Yeah, and then once again, it's not like we're not offering a product. Like it's this and that's it. We're offering a framework from which you can choose how you wish to work, and then you either reuse pieces that other people have built to meet those needs, or you build them yourselves, right? So you can use, this could be used for any type of processing of any type of content in any way that you wish. And some of the approaches that have been built on top of that exist out there is EIFL building on top of a system called Texture, which is a web-based JATS editor, and they've chosen that approach to work out how that works for them. Editoria uses HTML as a source file format for book production, and there's a web-based word processor called Wax, which has been built to meet those needs. The EBI system uses XML, and they have their own processes for managing that for QA processes. The Hindawi system manages this content as attachments. So, it all depends on anything can be processed, any file format. We're not saying you should do this or you should do that, or that only journal publishers should do X, Y, Z. But whatever choice you have, whatever road you want to take, there are some components out there that may support that and maybe not. So you can either reuse them or you can build your own.
Thanks. We also have a question from Frederick Odongo from Uganda Christian University. Does it come with an inbuilt statistics tool? It's the same.
I think it's the same answer. At this moment, you can build whatever you want for any kind of statistics parsing, report generation that you need. At this moment, I don't believe there is a reusable component for this specifically, but there has been a lot of discussion around it. So it might be by the time you start down this path that somebody's already starting to build that, and you can work with them. So, but once again, just to emphasize, Coko is not offering a product where it's a journal product, but Coko is offering, what we do is we build community, of which there are multiple platforms available with very different approaches. So I can't say, does it, do the system support JATS? Some of them do, some of them don't. Yeah, it's a slightly more expansive approach to solving this problem.
Jadranka is asking, in what sense is Pubsweet helping journals to become compliant with Plan S requirements?
I think you'd have to, actually, you'd be better talking to Hindawi and EIFL about that. Pubsweet itself is an open-ended framework on which you can build any kind of functionality. And so far as things have gone down that path for Hindawi and eLife, actually, I have to say I'm not up to date on that. So you're very welcome to reach out to me, and I can facilitate a conversation around that if you like.
And Vyacheslav has a follow-up question. If all the workflows in Hindawi suits us, then we can implement it in our organization without any programming expertise? And it's a question mark.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. And what we do is, in part, facilitate that. So you can reach out to Hindawi directly, or if you wish to, you can come to us and we can facilitate that conversation, or because we might also know other platforms that are being built that might also be interesting to you. So we're not gatekeepers to the community. You can approach anybody, but we may know a little bit more about what's happening in each of the organizations than any one of the members.
There is also a question from Dr. Mahdi, which type of databases Coko uses, but I guess we sort of covered that already, saying that there are different approaches in different software.
Well, there's different approaches in many different softwares. On the back end, we're a little bit more stable. You could choose any database, but really all of the systems have so far been built against Postgres, which is an open source SQL database. It's very robust. It's proven in production. So we use that as our primary target for all of the platforms. Yeah.
I think by now we covered all questions and comments. Thanks a lot, Adam, and we still have some time. So if you still have some more questions or thoughts,
from me, you mean? Or?
No, from the participants.
Okay.
I think you talked a lot.
Yeah.
I'm just checking, so I guess there are no new questions. So we'll probably be wrapping up. Thanks a lot, Adam, and thank you all for joining us today and for asking questions. Just sorry. Okay, so two more questions, sorry.
Great, that's great.
Vyacheslav is asking, do you support Dockers?
Oh yes, yeah. You can either deploy Pubsweet applications, platforms natively, or you can use Docker. Most of the organizations we work with are Dockerizing everything. It's just an easy way to work. So yes, we do support Docker. Yeah.
And one more question from Jose. Which component of the framework is focused on harvesting content? Is Pubsweet doing that, content harvesting?
No, there's been, by harvesting, I guess, if you're looking at scraping or batch processing and extracting data, there has been nothing built with Pubsweet explicitly. But a number of this is the interesting thing about the community, is that there are a number of these organizations working together around Pubsweet, but they also have side projects. So, for example, eLife is doing some work on semantic analysis of ingested articles. And so the Coko community has the shared infrastructure of Pubsweet that we work around, but we also share knowledge and learnings from other projects that we're all involved in. So it becomes a very rich environment.
And Vyacheslav is also asking, what kind of collaboration are there between Coko and digital science?
Digital science is just newly joined us, and they're working, the innovations department is working on a number of platforms built on top of Pubsweet. And one of them is powering a small physics journal at Auckland University in New Zealand. And that their approach to it was actually really fascinating, where they decided to, rather than build a very specific workflow, that they would build a system where you could describe a workflow in a workflow descriptor language. So essentially, an XML format describing the workflow, and then the platform would compile this on the fly, so you could reconfigure it depending on your use case. And it's originally I was very skeptical that this could work, but they've done a very good job. It's really fascinating. Yeah, so that's what digital science are doing, and they're thinking about other things as well at this moment. Yeah, and everything that everyone's doing in this is open source.
4 more questions.
Oh, great.
So I'll start with the chat, and then I'll move to Q&A.
Yeah.
So Shaba from Maldives is asking about multilinguality.
Mm-hmm.
This platform's multilingual.
So we've just started some work on this recently. There is a potential collaboration with a part of the French government. Most of this development so far has been Anglophile, the English-speaking US and UK developers mostly. So where all of the content is also in English. And we've just had this French collaboration, which is starting to push us towards supporting multiple languages. The nice thing about it is that from a content point of view, it doesn't really matter. From an interface point of view on the platforms, it matters. And so this is just starting to become a discussion now. The other good thing is that JavaScript has no shortage of libraries to assist us in implementing translation PO files and stuff like this going forward. So so this is underway. It's not a large effort. We have been not very proactive in this just because our user base is not really, has only been needing English interfaces, but it's starting to change now.
There is also a question from Dr. Mahdi. What's the approximate number of organizations collaborating with Coko?
I don't know. 20 to 30, somewhere in there. The core collaborators that work very hard on this stuff, that are dedicating developers, there's probably about 8. And then there's a lot of other organizations that are participating by input around specific platforms. Editorial being the main one, which is basically a book production platform where none of the book producing publishers have developers in-house. This has just actually recently started to change. And so Coko provides the developers, and then we facilitate these book publishers to work together to design the system. Yeah, so in total, I guess it's between 20 and 30, something like this. Yeah.
And Vyacheslav is also asking about, I guess, Hindawi platform, whether it supports OA, PMH, Open Archive initiative protocol for metadata harvesting.
I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know. So that would be a discussion to have with Hindawi, which we can facilitate if you like, or you can just reach out to them.
And then Dr. Ila from Covenant University in Nigeria is writing that creating a demonstrator open access repository will surely thrive on collaboration. What is your advice to researchers and service providers towards ensuring super productive collaboration for various open repositories in their nations?
That's a hard question. I mean, as I said before, people are the hardest part of this equation, and try and get people to agree is hard work. So in order to have a productive collaboration where you actually make something together, you first of all have to have this good faith engagement, and we spent a lot of time, building that, and that's a bumpy road. It can be really hard. You have to have fun with each other, but you also have to have difficult conversations, and you have to find a way to remain committed to the collaboration. So that means that you sometimes are going to have to compromise on things. So the way to do it, the way to solve people problems, is with people, with conversation, right? So I think the secret of Coco's success so far, yes, the technology is interesting, but it's the facilitation that's critical. And facilitation is not an easy thing to get right. There's good and bad facilitation. There's plenty of bad facilitation. And, finding the right facilitators, people who really know how to do this, which is very hard to find these people, is, I think, the critical ingredient.
Thanks. And I guess it's a good way to end the webinar if you don't have, well, there is a question from Coko. How does peer review work in this platform, especially for academic publishing?
How does what peer review?
Work in this platform, especially for academic publishing? Well,
it depends on what you want from that peer review process and whether there's a system out there that meets it. So, for example, I think eLife has a relatively famous model of collaboration around the decision letter, for example, and that they're building those components that are reusable by others. So if that's something that you like, then you could use it and it could be very interesting for you, but you may have a different approach. So there's no one way to do peer review. There's the whole point about this collaboration is that everybody has their own thoughts about, what the best way to do peer review is and what the process should look like and whether it should be open or semi-open or whatever. And so you bring those ideas to the community and you work with others to build systems to realize it, to support that approach. Sometimes those systems are already going to exist and sometimes they're not. So, yeah.
Thanks. Last minute to type your questions. And if there is an interest in Hindawi platform, because that was also something that we discussed with Adam, that we can do a more in-depth webinar with Hindawi team and provide more details. So if you're interested, we can schedule that webinar. Okay, I think there are no other questions or comments. Thanks again, Adam, and thank you all for being so active and asking questions and sharing your thoughts. Have a good rest of the day, and like I said, I will email you slides and recording, and I hope we'll continue conversations, and you'll have Adam contact details on slides, so please reach out to him. Thank you all. Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Thank you for the invitation. It was a privilege to present to you all. Thanks.